It's primary night. Do you know where your ballot is? It's due in an hour, so if you still have yours, you're excused from this program. Go drop it off at a voting center by 7 p.m. Everyone else, let's get to it. Colorado's top Republican plans a quiet night with his career on the line. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is all kinds of confident, and the math suggests she should be. We'll look ahead to all the races we're following tonight with our team spread out across the state. Then, CDOT's new rules against express lane weaving have turned out to be very profitable. $41 million in fines.
I think it's highway robbery.
That's tonight on Next. Good thing the earth isn't flat, because the Colorado Republican Party would be in danger of falling off the far right side, and the far left flank of the Colorado Democratic Party would be marching off the other end. But the world is round, and as it spins tonight, Coloradans will decide the direction of both parties on primary night. With so much at stake, it's kind of discouraging to see that as of 3 p.m. this afternoon, only 21% of Colorado's eligible voters had returned their ballots. The Denver metro area does tend to vote late, but those are sluggish returns so far. Turnout's down among both major parties and unaffiliated voters if you look at this primary versus the last two. Now, there's more interest, understandably, in the 4th Congressional District, which is Dougco, Loveland, and the Eastern Plains. 27% of eligible voters there have returned their ballots, because along with the primaries, every voter there can vote in a special election to fill former Congressman Ken Buck's term through the end of the year. The Republican primary in that district is getting the most national attention of any of our races tonight because Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is in it. And our Mark Salinger is on it. He's up in Windsor, where the Congresswoman moved when she came over from the Western Slope. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, who says politics has to be boring? We're at a bar right now up here in Windsor. This is Lauren Boebert's election night watch party here. She's expected to be here in the next couple of hours. And as you were talking about with voter turnout so far, what we're hearing for CD4 right now, the Boebert campaign, they expected about 140,000 people to vote. Right now, they're expecting that to be lower, about 120,000 people voting in this election. So what does that mean for the Congresswoman? Hard to tell, right? She has the name recognition, but at the same time, there's a lot of unaffiliated voters in this district. You could put the lower turnout either way, see what that means. Regardless, they are very confident here tonight that she will be elected, shouldn't say elected just yet, but that she will win this Republican primary in this new congressional district that she's running in, CD4, and likely will then move on to become the next Congresswoman representing the Eastern Plains, Douglas County, and then up here parts of northern Colorado with Loveland and Windsor. Now, Boebert obviously favored to win tonight. Not only does she have the name recognition, she also has the endorsements, right? President Trump, as well as the Colorado GOP. They did that rare step of endorsing somebody in this primary election before the primary vote even happened. They are, of course, very confident that Lauren Boebert will win this primary election and then be elected to Congress. Whoever wins, of course, this primary likely to be elected to Congress because this is the most Republican district in the state. Only 20%, less than 20% of registered people, registered voters in this district are registered Democrats. So what are we watching for tonight? The numbers, of course, right? If Boebert hits more than 50%, then you say, well, the voters in this district obviously want Lauren Boebert to be the next Congresswoman representing them. If she hits less than 50%, let's say the 30s or the 40s, then you look at this Republican primary field that is very crowded. 5 other candidates, Kyle, that you've spoken with, that we've had debates with, and then you say, are they all splitting the anti-Boebert vote? And if they had united around one person, would that person have been able to defeat the Congresswoman? We'll find out in just a couple of hours as the polls close in about an hour.
Yeah, as they said in that movie Austin Powers, that train has sailed. Mark, I'm curious to see who's in the room tonight, right? I mean, because so many of the Republicans in the 4th Congressional District lined up behind somebody other than Lauren Boebert. And it's kind of only through sheer force of name identification and a lot of cash is the thought that she's going to pull out this race. There aren't that many, I guess, prominent Republicans within the district in her corner, so it'll be interesting to see who's in the room tonight. How many people and from what walks of life?
Yeah, I mean, right now there's not a whole lot of people anywhere. There's nobody here right now, but yes, who will be here? We're told that it's going to be a small party, about 75 people or so, and you think 75 people for Lauren Boebert, one of the most prominent Republican names in the entire country, that's a small election watch party. We'll see what happens, who shows up.
Yeah, only an election party after 7 p.m. at that bar. Before then, it's just day drinking. Mark Salinger, thank you.
Exactly, yes.
The 4th Congressional District special election is this man, Republican Greg Lopez, long ago the mayor of Parker, more recently an unsuccessful GOP candidate for governor, versus a political newcomer, Democrat Tricia Calvarese. This is a safe Republican seat, but we're going to be watching the margin in this race. Can Calvarese make it more competitive? Can she also win the Democratic primary? Long shot dream for Democrats, but we'll keep an eye on it. This is the biggest night of Dave Williams' political career. The head of the Colorado Republican Party is betting his reputation on his party purge and his personal promotion. The GOP has dropped its traditional primary neutrality rules so the party can endorse Williams for Congress and back some other Republicans in contested primaries. So where is Dave Williams on this biggest night of his career? Our Marshall Zellinger has been down in El Paso County trying to figure it out. Marshall.
Well, let's play a game of Where Am I? But first, we see Dave Williams right now walking into the door of the place that you're not so sure where it is yet. So let's give you some clues. Right above that building is a landmark, Kyle. Do you know what that mountain is? Well, yeah, it's Pikes Peak. Perhaps where I'm standing will give it a... Nope, it's a dirt field. That's not going to help. The parking lot where you just saw Dave Williams walking... No, it's a nondescript parking lot. This is the church at Briargate, Kyle, the church where the pastor is controversial Republican State Representative Scott Bottoms. This is where you just saw party chair and congressional candidate Dave Williams walk inside for a watch event tonight. And when I went to that door earlier to see if I could go in, I was told it was closed. This is the big night for Williams and the Colorado GOP because the party endorsed 17 candidates in contested primaries, including endorsing Williams in his race for Congress here in El Paso County. Williams has faced criticism from other Republicans this month for anti-gay remarks and a call to burn all pride flags. When I interviewed him last week, I wanted to know if tonight's results party-wide would determine his future as head of the party. Being the head of any organization relies on results. If most of the candidates that the party has endorsed do not win, do you step down?
I have no plans to step down. I'm sure that's a conversation that my critics are going to have in light of the pride comments, but regardless, I'm here to fulfill the entirety of my term, and that's it.
In my history of covering candidates and election night watch parties and primaries and general elections, the only candidates that choose to have closed events and not welcome the media and cameras and journalists are the ones who don't want to face questions once the results come out. We won't know the start of the results for another 53 minutes until the ballot box is closed and we start to see some of the turnout or the results based on people who have already turned in their ballots. But Kyle, this gives me an idea of what Williams and perhaps the Colorado Republican Party may be thinking tonight.
It can't be unheard of, but it certainly also seems unusual for a candidate and state party chair to seek refuge in a house of prayer.
That is not perhaps unusual. I know there are people that wonder about tax-exempt status and churches and events. I don't know any answers to that. Like, is this if it's a closed event, who's allowed in? What requirements does it take to get in? I will say, I do remember in the gubernatorial primary, Heidi Ganahl originally was not going to have a public event, and then I think it was the night before where there was an about face, and then there was a public event, and she won. And so I know my thinking was, oh, she must have read the tea leaves thinking she wasn't going to win that primary, and then decided to go public. Here, we have an event where we've been told we can't go through the doors, so perhaps that says something. I don't know.
I hope you have a very entertaining night in that church parking lot in the shadow of Pikes Peak. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. We're going to find out what kind of sway Williams and the Colorado GOP have with Republicans around the state tonight. In Congressional District 3, Lauren Boebert's former district on the Western Slope, the state GOP is endorsing that man, former state lawmaker Ron Hanks, endorsing him over likely frontrunner Jeff Hurd. Hanks is an election denier who pushed elections officials not to certify Colorado's election last year, not 2020, like last year. The man was also present in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, the day of the attack on the Capitol by supporters of Donald Trump. And lately, Democrats have been playing a dangerous game again, boosting Hanks' campaign this month because they view him as easier to beat in November. The Democratic super PAC, Rocky Mountain Values, and the campaign of Democrat Adam Frisch have poured triple figures into ads that are helping Hanks or criticizing his GOP opponents. National Republican groups supporting Hurd have called that meddling, and they're now running their own ads against Hanks.
Liberals supporting Ron Hanks, they know they can count on him. And Democrat mega donors are propping up his campaign with huge funding to elect another liberal to Congress.
Not the first time the Democrats in Colorado have done this. As I've said here before, it undercuts their argument that election deniers pose a threat to democracy if they're going to boost them when they think they're easier to beat. Well, don't let the open brawling in the Colorado Republican Party distract from the dissension among Democrats in this state. Tonight, we're watching about a dozen Democratic primaries to see if big money and centrist candidates can defeat progressives who have steadily gained more power at the state capitol. State Rep. Elizabeth Epps of Denver, a Democratic socialist, has a centrist primary challenger backed by many of her colleagues in the House, as well as the Democratic governor. Tim Hernandez, the man on the right there, also faces a more moderate opponent. He's an appointed first-year legislator. They're part of a growing progressive contingent at the Capitol, pushing their Democratic colleagues on priorities like rent control, drug policy, and stricter gun control. So, don't want to be awkward about this ask, but you have plans for tonight? You want to hang out? I'll be back on KTVD Channel 20 and streaming on 9 News Plus at 7 o'clock as we get the first election results. You will see them as we see them. And our teams are standing by across the state to bring you updates and analysis of what this means for the direction of Colorado. We'd love to see you back here at 7. Boulder is trying to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for climate change. After years of legal battles, the effort is advancing. Drivers breaking the express lane rules have turned out to be a multi-million-dollar boon to our state. After years of delays, Boulder is moving forward with a lawsuit against major polluters for damages they say were caused by climate change. ExxonMobil and Suncor Energy have repeatedly tried and failed to have this suit tossed. County leaders in Boulder first filed the lawsuit 6 years ago. They say that ExxonMobil and Suncor contributed to the climate crisis and should pay to help mitigate its impacts like air pollution, drought, and wildfires. Suncor and ExxonMobil wanted the case moved to the federal circuit. They've argued state courts are too likely to side with the locals. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case in similar cases in other states last year. Suncor and ExxonMobil have tried to have the case tossed out of state court, but a district court judge in Boulder ruled this week that the case can proceed. And now the seamless change from a story about the impact of oil and gas companies on our changing climate to a string of near 100-degree days in Denver. Kathy.
It's unusual. It's early in the season, and we have not had a 100-degree reading since August 5th of 2022. So the hottest day of the season, even with the cloud cover this afternoon, not keeping the numbers down. The record is 105, have not hit that number as of yet, but very early to see numbers like this. This is a scenario that we would see in July or August. So incredibly warm, incredibly dry, and we need to be extremely careful in terms of fire danger. Heat advisories continue for Denver through 9 o'clock tonight. The air quality isn't great, even with the wind that is whipping out there from DIA out toward the Watkins area. We have an ozone alert. High levels of ozone in the atmosphere create an air quality alert that will go through 4 o'clock tomorrow. It's still warm. 90 in Denver this hour, 103 in Lamar, 75 in Kremling, 83 in Eagle. But we are tracking isolated storms. Unfortunately, they're producing wind and lightning and not the rain we need. But that all changes tomorrow with an overnight cool front that will bring in some low-level moisture. We start with sunny skies tomorrow, 2 o'clock foothill storms, 4:30 they move through the metro area, 6:30 to 7:30 they become quite strong out on the eastern plains. And so the severe weather threat certainly there tomorrow afternoon, and maybe a little bit of a cool down with the cloud cover and potential for rain that we're not seeing tonight. So hot highs in the 90s, but a slow cooling trend that'll get us into the upper 80s Friday, mid-80s Saturday, then back to the heat for Sunday and Monday.
It just seems like a way to generate money, and apparently they've generated a lot of money.
We used to have a segment on Next called You've Crossed a Line. The state of Colorado has a new segment called You've Crossed a Line, and it's won them tens of millions of dollars. If you've crossed the line into a toll lane in the last 9 months, you know that can be an expensive decision. $75 a pop, $150 if you don't pay the fine right away. It made our Steve Steger wonder how much the state has made on those toll violations, and the number is, ooh boy.
The rules of the road seemed clear to Lisa Reif.
They've said over and over again, you can't cross a double solid line. So I know I don't do that. Never, ever, ever do that.
The state has been warning since last summer that if you cross those double white lines into a toll lane, the computer catches you and they'll slap you with a $75 fine. Lisa knew that, says she purposely didn't do it, and still opened her mail to find a fine.
And I was like, absolutely shocked.
Actually, multiple fines. The notice said between November and February, Lisa had illegally crossed into the toll lane on C470 8 separate times. At $75 per violation, that meant she owed $600. Her dash cam shows some of what happened. Instead of crossing a double white line, Lisa crossed a dashed line, essentially entering the toll lane at an exit.
I think it's highway robbery.
Hans Gebhardt says both he and his wife got tickets for violating the toll rules on I-25, rules they didn't realize existed either.
The bill came several months later, so it was like, what's this? It just seems like a way to generate money. And apparently they've generated a lot of money.
This new fine is generating money. Between October, when the state started issuing fines, and this month, Steve on Your Side found Colorado wrote tickets for more than $40 million in fines. More than $40 million in fines assessed in 9 months.
If you run with a $40 million figure out there, I think it would be highly misleading.
Though Tim Hoover with the Colorado Transportation Investment Office doesn't want you to focus on that $40 million number.
There's going to be tickets that we can't collect. And also remember, it can take a while to even collect stuff that we can collect.
He says the state has only been able to collect about 2/3 of it. And at the end of the day, after paying the company that runs the cameras and other costs, they've only netted a little over $16 million. You might be asking what the state might do with $16 million it didn't have before.
Safety improvements, so you're talking about striping improvements, signage improvements, guardrail.
And he says they'll use it to educate the public so they know how to avoid those fines through things like TV ads.
Sounds like that outreach can be expensive.
It is with what you guys charge.
Got to keep the lights on, I guess. Yeah, right. So a reminder here, if you don't pay that $75 fine within 20 days, it goes up to $150. If you don't pay that, it goes to collections. And if you still don't pay, you're going to have trouble renewing your registration when it comes due. And he says the penalty seems to be working. 81% of people who've gotten a violation only got one. By the way, Steve on Your Side at 9news.com. If you got a ticket you don't think's right, you want to look into it, we'd love to hear from you.
I don't know if they have the ability to break it down like this. I'd be fascinated how many of those tickets are somebody who is like clipping the line at the start, or the people who are entering like right in the middle of the lane. Because that's terrifying. If you're in the express lane and somebody comes over in front of you if they can't see you in traffic, that's terrifying.
And, you know, we've talked to CDOT. One of the things they said is their internal polling shows a lot of people like this idea, right? They don't like seeing people weave in and out of toll lanes, especially if they're trying to kind of skirt the system. But we are finding a few people who are very, very confused, especially when you see a dotted line, you think you can get in, and then all of a sudden you can't get in, and you have no choice but to get in. Then you get a $75 ticket on top of a toll.
That's when you make that noise when you're driving. You're like, ah!
Yeah,
that's the noise.
There.
That's the noise. Yeah, we both know the noise. Yeah, back with the feedback next. If you like your primary results with a side of Straight Talk, I invite you to join me tonight at 7 o'clock live on KTVD Channel 20 and streaming on 9 News Plus. As we analyze the results in real time as they come in, I'll be with you tonight until 10:30. Feedback from Don, who says, how else is CDOT supposed to enforce HOV lane violations if they don't fine violators? I think that's fair. We just want to figure out like what's the best system. Robert says, I crossed the line for 10 seconds to avoid a drifting car. CDOT did not sympathize. $75. And Neil says, did you loan Lester Holt one of your jackets? I think Lester was wearing it up in Aspen tonight. Did you see that check? Lester, my man. Are you kidding me? See you next time.